Germany is the economic powerhouse of Europe. It's hard to believe only 67 years ago that nation was in ruins. The Germans have a history of coming out of some of the most challenging situations and doing so in a swift fashion. Here recently, the Eurozone has been a hot topic in economic news. European nations like Greece, Cyprus, and now Spain are facing bankruptcy and taking massive bailouts that are being handed down from the European Central Bank in Berlin. Some think nations such as these are better off out of the Eurozone. Europe is dependent on Germany. If the Eurozone collapses, Berlin will be the scapegoat. This is exactly where Germany wants to be. According to About.com, the European crisis started in 2009 as a direct result of the recession in the United States. The slow global economic growth revealed the careless spending of European nations. Greece was the first to feel the pinch because their debts exceeded their entire economy. They received the first of the bailouts handed down by the EU. Cyprus was next. The situation in Cyprus was sudden and almost overnight. This sudden crisis called for desperate measures. The Cypriot government literally looted its citizens' bank accounts to pay its bills. According to the UK Guardian, Cyprus needs a $10 billion euro bailout by April 24th of this year, or the island nation will literally run out of money. The Germans are reluctant to make such an investment because of the Greece debacle. The Spanish government is now feeling the domino effect of the European economic crisis. There is news of the Spanish royal family embezzling money and calls for the king to step down. It would appear as if Europe is headed down the drain. Economic issues in the United States are no better. The U.S. debt levels are a record, and some economists say by 2014, the U.S. will see a $20 trillion deficit. We sold 60% of the New York Stock Exchange to Germany. Trillions of dollars have been handed out to failed banks and companies. The taxpayers now own General Motors. The world is moving away from the once steady dollar as their reserve currency because of how unsteady it has become. Nations are hoarding gold because there isn't a currency out there that is quite ready to take the dollar's place. The euro is in a similar spot that the dollar is in right now, and the Chinese yuan is drastically overvalued. With the two mighty economic beasts wounded, the world seems to be bracing for an economic earthquake, the likes of which the world has never seen. Looking at these two currencies, it would seem the euro is in worse shape than the dollar. That may be partially true. According to Simon Johnson of the Australian Business Insider and columnist for the New York Times, in the short term, Europe may be worse off than the United States, but in the long run, it will be the U.S. who will be in trouble. The sheer size of the American economy is what gives it its luxury of time in this matter. Economists are saying it may be Europe who will trigger the next global economic crisis, but it will be the dollar that will not recover. With this looming, it would seem clear that the euro is on the fast track to becoming the next reserve currency. Looking at the history of Germany could tell you a lot about the future of Europe. Pre-World War I, Germany was an economic powerhouse. With the dust settling from World War I, Germany was blamed for the war and forced to pay for the damages to Europe. Within 30 years, Germany was again the economic powerhouse of Europe. Their economy was booming and German patriotism was at an all-time high. With the conclusion of World War II, Germany again was in shambles, blamed for the war, and charged with the reconstruction of Europe. Today, just shy of 70 years after the war and less than 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Germany again is an economic powerhouse. Their military is being used outside its borders for the first time since the 1940s, which is contradictory to treaties they signed with the United States. Germany's military was only to be used as a self-defense force, but with the US not being able to burden the weight of global policing anymore, there needed to be someone to take on a bigger role, and Germany has filled that role. History seems to be repeating itself yet again. Germany is exactly where it wants to be. Nations are dependent on them for their survival, and their military is more of a global influence than it has ever been. The euro will go through a collapse of sorts that will trigger an economic crisis, and we will see the demise of the dollar and the rise of a new superpower and a new reserve currency. Germany will be responsible for the collapse of the eurozone, but this collapse will seem planned, and when the recovery happens, Germany will be hailed as heroes of Europe.